Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace. Welcome back. Now, Ghana's economy would have been in a terrible state without an IMF program. That's the view of IMF's country representative, Dr. Natalia Kolidania. The fund has come under serious criticisms after the country failed to meet most targets set under the program for last year. This resulted in the public debt reaching 122 billion cedis, as the previous administration also ended last year's spending far more than what was approved by Parliament. Some economists have questioned the relevance of the IMF program because of its failure to prevent serious budget overruns for last year. But Dr. Kolidania disagrees.
Well, first of all, I would say that fund-supported program, the extended credit facility for which Ghana has with the fund for 3 years since 2015, helped macroeconomic stabilization. And if we look back to the beginning of the program, we see that there was a significant fiscal consolidation. In 2015, the fiscal deficit was under 7% of GDP, compared with over 10% of GDP in 2014. Well, I have already mentioned the exchange rate stabilization. This is an important achievement. So the Bank of Ghana tightened monetary policy quite significantly, which helped to reduce inflationary pressures and also supported exchange rate stabilization. These are all positive developments. At the same time, I wouldn't say that more could have been done. And here I'm referring to this last year's slippage. And I would say that it came as a surprise to us because the government actually gave so many assurances of their full commitment to the fiscal consolidation. And what was particularly clear and prominent in their statements was that they wanted to break down with the history of past overspending during the election year. Well, we should not really forget that the fiscal slippage was also the result of weak revenue, and part of the revenue weakness was due to the poor performance of the petroleum sector. And we'll all know about the breakdown of the FPSO. At the same time, I have to say that tax collections were quite weak across the board, and also there were some spending slippages.
Now, government is set to implement a new strategy that will make it difficult for foreigners to trade on the country's retail markets. The country's investment laws currently bars foreigners from trading in these markets unless they have about $1 million and also employ a significant number of Ghanaians. However, government over the years has struggled to implement these laws. But Minister for Private Sector Development Ibrahim Awal said this new approach will make it difficult for foreigners to operate on the retail markets.
Some areas in investment have been reserved for Ghanaians. We are going to ensure that the law is enforced. The law exists, it's enforcement. So there's a mechanism, government's working out a mechanism, there's a team put in place to make sure that the laws on retail trade for Ghanaians is strictly enforced. We'll do that very soon.
How soon are you going to continue to use the tax to go out there and enforce this, engage all the actors involved, or how is it going to be done? And some will say that when?
Very soon. Government, like I said, we have a mechanism to constantly improve the ease of doing business. So we're going to, the tax will be considered very soon, possibly before June. And then this committee will look at broader area, not just retail trade, constantly monitor the business environment to make sure that area that we need to improve to improve the ease of doing business is done. So it's going to be a cross-sectorial approach from several ministries and agencies that will ensure, the president wants to ensure that small businesses are supported to expand because they constitute 9% of this business and they are those who can employ people. We are a private sector-led economy. The private sector must be encouraged to constantly improve upon the business climate and improve business. So we want to support the private sector to do that. It will be done so.
Meanwhile, international trade relations expert Frederick Alipui is making a strong case for Ghana to desist from moves to eject foreigners trading in Ghana's retail markets. This, according to him, has a potential threat to the economic growth of African markets. There have been futile attempts in the past to reserve retail trading to only Ghanaians, a situation Mr. Alipui describes as problematic.
International trade relations expert and Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Frederick Alikwi, told Joy Business in an interview that since African markets are liberalized, it will not be a good decision on the part of government to take action against other nationals in the country's retail market. He is therefore of the view the presence of other nationals in the Ghanaian retail market promotes competition among traders.
It's neither here nor there. It's a global marketplace now.
So you think they should be allowed? I mean,
Yes, because we have signed the agreements. We have signed the agreement. Next time we can discuss, I will show you the provisions of the ECOWAS agreement, which says that, the Protocol on Free Movement, which says that, yes, Ghana can decide to close the doors, but should expect that her citizens will also not be guaranteed safe, open market in those countries. You'll be surprised to see Ghanaians in Cairo market, in Niger market. They are there.
But they are taking over our market. Nigerians are taking over our market. Are you saying we should still allow them?
Do you have the statistics to prove that they have taken over our market? You see, because when you see a few people speaking pidgin English, it doesn't mean that they have taken over. And I'm saying that it's a competitive market. What can we also do to respond to the competitive and open market?
He suggests that there are Ghanaians operating in other retail markets in Nigeria, Ivory Coast and other parts of the world without any discrimination. He is therefore cautioning government to halt plans to regulate other nationals in Ghana's markets.
You know, when we talk of people coming into our retail market, I served 1 year in Sierra Leone. The fish industry in Sierra Leone is in Ghanaian hands. Fish. When you go to downtown Freetown, the most prominent lady in charge of Sierra Leone fish is a Ghanaian. Ghanaians fish from Dakar all the way to Namibia, the coastline, because I've been working on the African continent for over 30 years, flying. So this thing is a delicate thing. When you hit somebody's head here, they will start beating our people in the Gambia. The Gambia, even last time we heard the foreign minister saying when they met the Ghanaian community there, they were shocked. Because Ghanaians are travelers. Our people, they are daring. They travel.
The ECOWAS protocol, however, allows nationals from member states to trade in any West African market within a stipulated time. However, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, and other trade-related organizations disagree.
This is live on the marketplace. Let's now cross over to the Eastern region, where the General Agric Workers Union, GAU, is calling on government to focus on expanding the agric sector. At its 69th National Executive Conference at the Bunsu College of Agric in the Eastern region, GAU has revealed plans to critically review all policies outlined by government in the 2017 budget, including the One Village, One Dam policy. Now, we're being joined by our correspondent, Charles Aite, live from Bunsu with some updates. Charles, good afternoon, welcome. Now, what have the executives been saying at this particular, what are the exact concerns of GAU?
Well, key concerns have been raised here at the 69th National Executive Council, Emmanuel, right here at the Bonsu Cocoa College in the Eastern region. The first one happens to do with the issue of galamsey, the menace of it and how it's affecting agricultural produce here in Ghana. The second has to do with the issue of the planting for food and jobs, which has been raised in the 2017 budget. But I do have here with me the president of GAU, the General Agric Workers Union, and as well the General Secretary, Edward Carrier, for that matter, to help expand this very situation and clear light. First of all, sir, thank you very much for honoring this very interview. You have raised key concerns in this very 69th NEC, meeting. What happens to be them? You talked about the issue of the planting for food and jobs.
Yeah. We, GAU, as an advocacy group, would like to know that planting for food, yes, is a very laudable idea. But the question is, what type of food are they going to cultivate? Is it staples or is it food that can be processed into semi-finished good? Semi-finished food. So that's our concern. We are stakeholders. We want to make sure we keep an eagle eye on the policy. We see where the direction is going and how we GAU can also contribute to make the program a success.
Okay, all right. So I will be getting back to you shortly, but with the General Secretary of GAO, Edward Karewe, we have been having extensive, talks with regards to the issue of galamsey and the fact that government would have to abolish it completely. Why so?
Well, galamsey is a menace, and then we are all witnesses to what it has done to the environment. Total destruction, permanent destruction of the environment. Apart from that, those who are engaged in galamsey dehumanizes themselves, because you cannot find the young men and women being buried in pits through galamsey. They are also found in mud, and then also exposed to dangerous chemicals that they are using. And we can never be proud of such jobs. We want jobs that are decent. We want jobs that guarantee people's lives. But if you look at galamsey, there's nobody who can work in galamsey to retirement. You will not even get to that age before you die through chemicals, and probably, if luck runs out, you may be buried in the pits.
All right. Okay. All right. But, let's shift our attention closely to the issue of cocoa, the cocoa sector, because you shared with me some light on how it's performed over the past years. What happens to be the clear state of Ghana's cocoa industry?
Yeah, Ghana, we hit the 1 million mark somewhere 2009, 2010 cocoa season. As I'm speaking to you now, we are now around 700,000 tons. That tells you a deficit of 300,000 tons. And if we know cocoa price and you multiply by the 300,000 tons, then you know the revenue the country is losing as a nation. And we all know cocoa is also the backbone of the country. So if we are losing so much revenue from cocoa, then the effect on the economy can well be imagined and described.
All right, so ending with you, Edward Karewe, where do you see the state of Ghana's agri sector, especially in this new administration?
Well, we have seen that it has taken the central stage of its development model and agenda. What we are seeking to ensure is that provided in the major policy of planting for food and jobs are 750,000 jobs. And then we are seeking that so far there are already 3,000 trained technical officers from the training colleges who are supposed to be employed. We call on government to employ them immediately, so that the program could be implemented and then achieve its goal.
All right, so key concerns have been raised. Thank you very much, sirs, for your, outputs in this very interaction. So there you have Emmanuel Rafi in the studio right here from the Bontuk Cocoa College in the Eastern region, where key concerns have been raised in the
Now, Charles, before you go, the president, Charles, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before you
Absolutely,
round up, the president earlier outlined that the budget's focus on the planting for food and jobs intervention lacked focus. Exactly what does GAO expect government to toe? Which line, which crops?
All right, I'm going to be directing that question to the president. You did state the fact that the issue of the planting for food and jobs, to some extent, lacks some sense of focus. Where do you think government would have to prioritize in order to make this a success?
And to correct myself, I didn't say it lacks some focus, but we say we are going to police it, we are going to keep an eagle eye on it and see. For instance, if they are saying planting for food and job, what type of food are they going to produce? Is it the staples or food that can be processed? Secondly, have they been able to put the market in place? Because it's not about producing, it's about also producing and also being able to sell. And when we sell, can we even consume all that we even produce in the country?
So, Charles, what exactly do they want?
We are able to export. So those are the key concerns we are going to raise to make sure that farmers will gain interest. It's not a matter of pushing farmers into certain crop production, after which they will lose interest and they will not go back into it because
so all right, okay, so you did hear that, Emmanuel.
Yes, but he's
stating a fact of the need.
He's still falling short of telling us what they, as GAO, as an association, wants the government to plan. What kind of foods? Because he's saying that the intervention lacks focus because it doesn't tell us what type of foods. In their opinion, what do they want the government?
Absolutely. So, sir, if I could channel that very question to you once again, Edward, what specific kinds of crops would you want government to focus on in the Planting for Food and Jobs project?
For instance, if you ask me, I can say a crop like potato will be very, very good for government to plant. Because if you go to Egypt, we have 30% of potato being blended with wheat to produce bread. I don't see any reason in Ghana here we should consume 100% wheat bread. Well, we can give 30% of that market to farmers who produce potato so that they can also use potato cultivation as a means of livelihood. So I will advocate for potato, sorghum, soya, which we can also produce oil and also how do you call fish feed and also poultry feed. We know most of the poultry feed and the fish feed is gotten from soya.
All right, then, Charles, I
what
guess
about
now,
you,
I
Edward
guess he's trying to tell us, or he's trying to tell government
We are more
to focus
concerned
more
about
on
making sure that
non-traditional
the
crops.
program, the project is implemented to the letter. It's a good policy, but it's not enough to, if you don't implement to the letter. We are also want to sound this caution that many people have gone into agriculture in the past and have been, they've experienced some disappointments.
All right.
So we want to ensure that when they produce, they are able to sell. And that's why we are talking about the market,
All right.
that it is critical for the survival of the program.
Absolutely. So, Emmanuel, key concerns have been raised right here at the NEC meeting, and we shall be feeding you in as and when the program ends.
All right, thank you very much, Charles Aite. Charles Aite reporting from the Eastern Region, specifically Bunsu, where the National Executive of the General Agricultural Workers Union, GAU, is currently having its National Executive meeting. Away from that, Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Anthony Akutose, is confident tax cuts announced by government will boost private businesses. Dr. Akutose made this observation as Parliament's Finance Committee inspected the Revenue Monitoring Center of Telecommunications Solution Provider, SUBA, that monitors revenues to Ghana Revenue Authority. There's more in this report.
The committee is the third among to visit SUBA Info Solutions. The Lands and Forestry Committee and the Communication Committee have taken their turns already. The legislators were taken through the digital mapping and property addressing system, a tour of the Digibox assembling unit, after which the team headed to the Data Monitoring Center. The center monitors activities of telecommunication companies to enable the Ghana Revenue Authority determine how much tax is due the state. Deputy Ranking Member of the committee, Alex Mensah, told the press the visitors enabled the committee gain better understanding of the monitoring system.
Because when you are away, you don't understand the system well. When they came here, they have just passed through all the necessary aspects, and you got the understanding what is supposed to be. So as we have learned a lot, when you go back, you use it to explain to most of our colleagues who have been here, so that you understand exactly what they'll be doing here.
Chairman of the committee, Dr. Makisibe Yeboah, called for more collaboration with government.
I think they can get into a joint venture, okay, with them. They've taken a good start, and the government can collate with them, collaborate with them, and then get the necessary data. As to whether it has national security implications, I think they explained that they have clearance from the national security outfit.
Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Anthony Akutose, who is also a member of the Finance Committee, said government will be seeking to address challenges that threaten the existence of private companies.
It's our belief that if we give the companies the right incentives, the private sector usually knows what it wants. It's not for you to determine for them what they want. But if you provide the right incentives, you recall we had a meeting with them earlier, and there were issues about some body not trying to give them a contract and so forth. That is not providing the right environment. And this issue has not gone away. We intend to deal with it.
SUBA is expected to further engage other committees of parliament.
Now, Ghana can now boast of $2,900 millionaires, excluding primary residences. This is about 200 after about 200 Ghanaians joined the elite group of dollar millionaires in 2016. This is contained in the latest wealth report by Stanbic Bank in collaboration with the international consultancy group Knight Frank.
Out of the 200 new dollar millionaires that joined the league in 2016, 10 were within the ranks of those worth more than $10 million. There was, however, no addition to the pool of those worth over $30 million, as well as center dollar millionaires, that is, those worth over $100 million. The editor of the Wealth Report, Andrew Shelley, says This number of Ghanaian millionaires is expected to almost double in the next 10 years, driven by the financial services and the real estate sector, among others.
Within the African perspective, Ghana has performed very strongly. We're looking over the next 10 years at an increase of almost 80%. So that's very strong.
Some would say that it's still pretty insignificant, comparing it with international standards.
Well, it's much higher than, say, Europe, for example. We're not looking at growth rates of anywhere near that in Europe or the US.
But even within the next 10 years, Ghana, for that matter, will still not catch up with the average European country as far as number of millionaires created is concerned. True or false?
Absolutely true, but you're very impatient. It will come.
Sure, and that will take quite a while, obviously.
But don't forget, a lot of these economies in African countries are much younger than economies in North America and Europe. So, you can't expect things to happen overnight. I mean, a lot of the countries in Africa are very young. It takes time to get things right. But when you get things right, that's when you really see the wealth start to be created.
Financial service is the main industry from which the high net worth Ghanaians have acquired their wealth, representing about 24%. Other important industries for them include real estate and construction, as well as mining. But how about the situation in Africa compared with the rest of the world?
In Africa, you've got 145,000 millionaires. In one US city, Chicago, 135,000. So the whole continent of Africa, there's not that many more millionaires than in one city in the US. So that puts it into perspective. So we can see there's a huge amount of potential in Africa for more wealth creation. And actually the biggest opportunity in Africa is the people. I meet people when I'm over here launching the Wealth Report, and you see their levels of entrepreneurship. You only have to drive down a street in any African city to see that everybody here is an entrepreneur. They're creating businesses out of nothing. So we're already seeing this.
But they are not necessarily creating businesses. I mean, million-dollar businesses.
Well, million-dollar businesses don't get created overnight, but the more people who are buying new services, spending money on goods, that's trickling back down the economy. And as the wealth is shared within the economy, people have more money to spend, and that money will create new millionaires, more entrepreneurs.
Now, multinationals operating in the country could soon be asked to list on the stock market. The plan is part of proposed changes to the country's local content policy. But could this initiative suffer any setbacks? The following Business Desk report has more.
The move is part of a broader policy by government to ensure that indigents are able to own part of most of the foreign firms operating in the country. The policy could first start with just encouraging these firms and later look at the option of putting the necessary laws in place for these firms to go public and list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Government might even take the lead with its plans to float some of its interest in state-owned institutions, especially those in the energy sector. Sources say some of these foreign firms have already taken steps to list by engaging transaction advisors. However, for some, the challenge is that most of these firms are still struggling to convince their shareholders about this policy. Another concern for the regulators is the response of some Ghanaians to public offering by foreign firms and whether a development like that could affect the policy.
Now, MTN Ghana, in its counterparts in Nigeria, it came ahead of its counterparts in Nigeria and South Africa as far as contributions of the MTN's group performance is concerned. In 2016, MTN Ghana made profit in the year under review, unlike MTN Nigeria and MTN South Africa, which made losses due to some challenges. This came to light during MTN Ghana's Stakeholders Forum.
The annual MTN Ghana Forum is an engagement between top management and stakeholders on the company's financial performance in the previous year at both the group and local levels. The MTN Ghana Group posted a marginal increase of 0.4% in revenue for the year ended 2016, following the fine imposed against MTN Nigeria, as well as the devaluation of the South African currency. MTN Ghana made a strong showing at the group level, driven by data revenue growth. The chief executive, Ebenezer Asante, explained to Joy Business this extends to the entire telecom industry across Africa.
I'm proud to say that Ghana led a pack not only from the MTN group perspective, but also across other telcos in Africa. Ghana pulled one of the best performance.
That's MTN Ghana.
MTN Ghana pulled one of the best performance across the industry in Africa. The revenue of MTN Nigeria and South Africa but the impact we had on our profitability, particularly for Nigeria, is due to the fine.
Okay.
So you make big revenue. Ordinarily, without a fine, you would have declared profit. But because of the fine, you have to recognize that cost as part of your operating expenditure.
Okay.
Based on which you will now have a loss.
Okay.
But it does not mean that just because you've had a loss, all of a sudden, and Ghana has posted strong financial results, then all of a sudden Ghana is bigger than South Africa, MTN South Africa or MTN Nigeria. No.
MTN Ghana posted almost 20% increase in both revenue and subscriber numbers in the year under review. According to Mr. Asante, this only reaffirms MTN Ghana's commitment to sustainable investment in the country.
Beyond the numbers and the volume, but you also want to look at the quality of the results. Because if you are growing, you also want to be sure you are growing in the right places, because that is the only guarantee that the growth will be sustained. The good thing is the growth that we saw coming out of Ghana is because we are growing in the right places. We are growing the mobile financial services. Today, we are next to Safaricom across the continent. We are growing in digital services. Today, we are not a media company, but we carry more media content than any single entity in this country. We are the largest music distributors in this country. We do a lot in entertainment, we do a lot in education, we do a lot in security. So we now have a 360-degree business, not just a telco.
Meanwhile, MTN Ghana is to invest $144 million in its operations this year, compared with about $100 million last year. The investment is to go into mainly data services, which MTN is planning to increase its 4G cell sites across the country by almost 200 after deploying almost 500 last year.
And that will be it for this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. Many thanks for joining me. My name is Emmanuel Apwaji-Biafi. Let's meet again tomorrow for more interesting developments in the world of business. Meantime, we are sending you back to Parliament, where Deputy Regional Minister designates have been appearing before the Parliament's vetting committee. Stay tuned.